Hi friends, I'm Anna. I'm so glad you're here today. Today I have a fun tip to share with you for what you can do on your card projects when they seem just a little too square or a little too plain for you. You want to add a little bit something extra or just need something, you're not quite sure what. I'm going to have loads of ideas for what you can do on those projects quickly and easily. At the end, I hope you'll stick around. I have a fun challenge to share with you that I would love for you to join in with this month to spread some holiday cheer. So let's get started. So here's a card I made, and it shows how things can be very, very square. Now I want to say there's nothing wrong with cards that have square edges. Most of my cards I make are like this, but let's say you make one, it just looks a little too square, or it just needs something a little fun, something a little more to spice it up. I want to share with you how to do some things to the corners of your different card layers. Maybe it's just one card layer, maybe it's several card layers that can add a little something extra. So the bundle I used on this card, you're going to be seeing lots of it. It is one of my favorites here recently. It's called Trucking Along, and like I said, you're going to be seeing lots of samples with it. So if you love that truck, stick around, you'll be seeing more. So what's something that's pretty basic that a lot of times we do on the corners is use a corner punch. You know, the ones that round the corners. A lot of you probably have one of these in your collection. And just for a fun tip, I wanted to share with you, if you don't have a corner rounder, you don't have to have a corner rounder. You can get like a circle punch or a punch of another shape and use it as a pattern to trim around. So if you have a limited budget or limited supplies in your collection, keep in mind there are ways to do these things without some of the tools. So that's a way to make those nice little rounded corners. Now here is a punch. Something I like to do, and I've been doing more than the rounding, is angled corners lately. This is a punch called the Very Best Trio Punch. I really like how it punches the corners, and you're gonna see, so these cards are not finished yet. I'm gonna do some punching, show you what it's going to look like basically. At the end, I'll finish them. I'll add a few embellishments. We'll come back and show you what they look like finished. But here's another sample of this adorable little truck punch. Here is some paper I cut out from a pack called Les Shops. It's French, Les Shops. So what I want to do on this is show how I'm going to use this angled punch. Then on the next one, I'm going to show you, you don't have to have a punch to do the angles. It makes it a little bit more precise with the punch, but keep in mind when you are doing something interesting with the corners of a piece on your project, you don't have to do all the corners, okay? A lot of times I will do all 4 corners, but a lot of times I only do 2 corners. So I'm going to do opposites on this one because I think it's fun. And then you could leave it like this, or something I do sometimes, a little outside the box. Now I have to punch through 2 layers right here, so I need both hands to give it a little more oomph. I'm going to do the bottom corner as well. And I just like the effect that that gives, okay? So for this one, we're doing these big angles on opposite corners. If you prefer all of them, you could do that with all of them. Here is the little, I love that this bundle comes with all these little different things that go in the truck bed. Let me show it to you real quick so you can see what I'm talking about. Here are all of the stamps, and it comes with the punch that does the truck, the fender, the wheel, and you can add a piece for the window. But you're going to see some different samples here as we keep going. So here's the one with the little buckets of flowers. So I'll show you the finished card here in a little bit. So let's talk about angling the corners if you don't have a punch. And I have gotten this question several times lately, and I wanted to show you how easy it is to make those angled corners just with some scissors with no special tools. And what I'm going to do is just cut little corners off. Now, Is this going to be exact because I'm doing it by hand? No, it is not going to be exact. And I could just do the one layer. I am going to be adventurous and do all the layers, which gets a little bit more tedious because if they're not the same, you'll be able to see on the edges. But friends, I want to help encourage you and remind you, I try to in my videos, handmade cards are not supposed to be perfect. They can't be perfect because they're handmade. So even if these don't line up perfectly, here's the thing. When the person gets the card, they're not going to be staring at these corners. They're not going to think a thing about the corners. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, that's the cutest little truck ever. I love it. So we can layer these. Like I said, we don't have to do all the layers if we don't want to. And then if I get it on here and I think like, okay, so this one is standing out a bit too much. So I can trim that off, make it look a little bit better if I feel like it, okay? So we can layer these. We'll add this on top and I will finish it up and bring it back to you. So there's a way to make some fun little corners if you don't have a punch. Next one, what I want to do is show you some ways to distress corners on a project. So there's lots of different ways to distress parts of a card. If making cards look aged or distressed is something you like, I'm going to put some links in the video description to other videos I've made. One of them is going to be on how to age and distress cards. I have lots of ideas on how to do that. So here's just a few quick ideas for how to distress them. And I'm just going to focus on the corners. One is to use the edges of your scissors just to rough up the edges, okay? So that's one thing you can do. I really like the look of that. We can do that on all the corners. So scissors are a great way. You can use sandpaper. So this is a sanding block that I got. This is just some old sandpaper that I think I used for another project. And when it seemed kind of worn out, I brought it down here. Or you can wrap some sandpaper around a block of wood. That works. You can get special crafty tools for this as well if you want to. But you can sand the edges. Since we're just talking about corners, we'll just do the corners, but you can even sand on your project and make it look a little bit distressed if you like the idea of that. So that's another way to make it look aged. And you can do some folding if you want to. You can fold it forward. You could fold it forward and fold it back again a little bit. I love this truck. So I'll mention that for this truck, I stamped it with my Memento ink and I colored with my Blends alcohol markers. If learning how to use these markers is something you're interested in, I've got a video on that I'll link to in the description below as well. And I will have links to all the products I'm using, this truck punch bundle and some other things as well. So what I'm going to do when I finish these cards up, I'll distress the corners of this a little bit more. I think I am also going to distress the corners of this nice specialty paper, the green paper I have that I wanted to layer it with. Show you I did all the stamping in the background with the same stamp set. I love how it comes with all the fun little pieces and parts that you can use in lots of different ways. So I'll finish this up and show it to you in a few minutes. And then last but not least, let's have some fun with punches. So here are a few different pieces of cardstock. We are going to change up the edges with some punches. And I just want to get you thinking outside of the box on how can you use your punches in different ways. I shared a video a while back on punch tricks, ways to use your punches in ways you may not have thought of before. And it is one of my most viewed videos. I'll link to that one as well. Some of these are tips that I shared in there, but there are more as well. But here's an idea. So you have this piece, you want to change up the edge. Maybe you don't have a die cutting machine or you don't feel like taking the time to do the die cut. Punching can be a quick way to change up the edges quickly and easily. So look at your punches in your collection. You don't have to use the whole punch. You can use just part of the punch. So as you saw on there, I inserted the paper this direction until it is coming out over here, and I punched just that rounded corner. Now, let's say you want to do just the corner and not necessarily, I'm going to do this one a little bit different so you can see the difference. I just did up here on that corner, and now I'm going to insert again and do the other half so we get a slightly different curve on that one. This is a punch called the Modern Oval. Really like it for a lot of different things, but that's a way to use it. Now let's grab another one. And here's a circle punch. You can use circle punches for things besides circles. So we'll do this one the same way. And depending on if you have a large or small circle, you can get different curves, of course. You know, this is a pretty big curve because it's a large circle punch. If you have a smaller piece, you may want to use a smaller circle. But look at your punches, especially your shape punches. And I have one more card sample to show you, and I want to bring in a couple of other punches and show ways to use them. So here is another truck. I just love this little punch, and if you want to see a little bit more from it, I'll show you here in a second how you can stamp these little scenes really quickly and easily. So this punch is called the Heartfelt Hexagon. I am going to use it in a similar way, and let me show you before we do that. Here are the pieces I have for this card. I got these papers from that same paper pack I mentioned a little bit ago. I thought they were bright and sunny and they look beachy. So these are the pieces I have, but let's spice it up a little bit, right? Like, it's kind of plain. I don't know, it needs a little something. So I'm going to insert the edges of this piece into this Modern Oval punch. We'll get rid of my scraps. See how that made a fun angle on that edge? I'm going to do the same thing on this other edge. And you don't have to. Again, I could just do the one edge. I do like things kind of asymmetrical sometimes. A lot of times I stick to the basics, but it's fun to do things a little bit different sometimes. So I love that, right? Like, it looks die cut pretty much. And this is a way you can make things look punched or die cut to the exact size of whatever you have on your card. Sometimes it's hard to find a punch or die cut that lines up with the shape and the size you want. This is a way you can customize those. And let's get a fun little edge punch. And let's see, what is this? Elegant Edge. So this is made to punch up to 2-inch wide pieces. Do I have a 2-inch wide piece? Well, we're close. You can put in pieces that are wider, which is good to know. You may not know that about these punches, but because mine was a little bit wider, I got this little piece hanging off on the edge. But isn't that a nice edge? I just really like it. It's beautiful. But you don't have to do pieces that are 2 inches wide. So wanted to show, we're going to do this narrower strip. And a lot of times when I am punching with these, I will flip them upside down. And I can insert it all the way over to this edge. It helps hold it stable, but I want to keep my piece as long as possible, so I'm going to pull it back from the edge a little bit. And looking at it this way, I can make sure it looks centered. That's why I'd like to do it upside down. Now, because I'm doing a narrower piece, I have to be aware that the pattern on it, the design, may be incomplete, and it may look, we'll see what it looks like after we get it punched. I'll put it on here so maybe you can see it a little bit better. But we get that fun little pretty edge. And if you're looking closely, you can see that it's kind of cut off at the edge. It may not look perfect, but to someone who doesn't make this card, it's just going to look pretty and decorative. So those are two ways to use your punches in kind of different ways that you may not think of to spice up the shape of the pieces on your card a little bit. So let me show you how easy it is to use this truck punch bundle. And then I'm going to finish these cards up and get right back to show you the finished result. So I am going to stamp the truck first. Next, I am going to fill the truck in. And I am going to mention that when I first started using this, I was having a hard time getting this stamp in particular to stamp correctly. Do you ever have that problem? Does it drive you crazy? When you just can't get it to look right. So I went through a whole series of steps to figure out what was going on and why my stamp wasn't stamping properly. And in my next video, I am going to share with you those steps I went through, the things I do when something won't stamp properly, so that I can try and figure out how to make it work right. So I just thought I would mention that. Now, I can't really look straight down on this because of my camera, so if these don't end up lined up, that's why. But so you can stamp and fill in the truck really easily. You can punch this out if you want to, or what I'm going to do for this one, and what I did for a lot of these, was to add the cute little decorative things in the truck bed. So for this one, we're going to add that Christmas tree, and then each of the pieces that go in the back of the truck bed have a 2-layer option. So you can add that detail without having to color. These are great stamps if you like to color, to add some color, sit down and color in front of the TV or while you're watching videos, you know. But it's really easy to do them if you don't want to take that time to color. So wanted to show you that real quickly. Now let me finish up these cards. I'll be right back. Okay, let's take a look at these. So we'll look at this one first. I just added a few sequins to this. So that's the one I started with. Here's the one I punched those large corners on. I just popped up these 2 pieces, added a few sequins. So I love how, I can't remember if I mentioned how much I talked about this or not, but you can stamp and punch this truck out, or you can just use the punch and create ones like this, or I stamped on the different colors of cardstock for this one and then punched those out. So there's lots of different ways you can use this. So that one here is the one with the corners I cut by hand. So if you look close, you can see it's not exactly perfect, but that's okay. I did end up cutting the corners of these 2. I thought if everything else was angled, maybe those should be as well. Keep in mind, if you only do 1 layer, like these right here, I've done this on cards before where I'll cut my greeting tag, for example. If you just do 1 layer, it's a lot easier than if you're trying to layer several on top of each other. So keep that in mind. And then the one that I distressed, really like how this one turned out. I think it turned out really cute, and with the farm fresh, I just thought it was fitting. And then here's the one with the different punches that I used and added these layers together. So hope you enjoyed these projects. I'm going to flip my camera around and talk about the little, kind of like a challenge that you can join in with this month if you would like to. So if I know anything about card makers, it includes that this bunch is one of the most amazing groups of people I have ever met. Individually, you just keep amazing me with kindness and generosity and all kinds of things. So during this season, this month of giving that can be happy and full of joy, but full of craziness and also really full of heartache and pain for some people, and hard times financially for some people. It's a season where hopefully we can do some things to help others out. So this is something I've done the last couple of years. I am planning on doing more of it this year. But just a simple little thing we can do to brighten the day of people that we come in contact with. So what does it involve? It involves a card and an envelope. If you have an envelope, chances are if you watch along with my videos, you have some of these, unless you're new and just trying to get up the courage to make your first card. This would be a good occasion if that's the case. But grab a few cards, grab a few envelopes, and put some kind of message on the inside that is generic enough that you could give this to someone that you come in contact with. So I'd made this Christmas card. Peace on Earth was already stamped inside. I hand wrote blessings to you this Christmas, and I signed my name. There are times I've done this before where I'll write like, thank you for brightening my day. Personalize it to whatever seems fitting, but I like to make them general enough that, you know, I could hand it out to the postal worker at the post office or the person who checks me out at the grocery store. I want to make a bad joke, like not the person who looks at me and is like, hey girl, not that person who checks me out at the grocery store, the cashier. You can give to the cashier. If you're out eating somewhere, your server or the person who seats you. We come in contact with so many people this time of year. But prepare a few of these. If you feel that you are able to, and if you feel led to, put some cash inside or something small. It could just be a little gift. It could be a tea bag or a bookmark or whatever. But the last few years I've done some of these and put some cash inside just to help out other people and brighten their day. Pay it forward. We are so very blessed, and we should use what we can to help others. I know for me, and probably for a lot of you, sometimes it's hard to know how to help people. Like, I don't know who exactly needs help. I don't know how exactly to help people. But we don't have to have specific reasons. We can just do kind things for them just because. So join me in doing that this month if you feel like you want to. And thanks so much for watching along. I hope you have a blessed day, and I hope you'll be back again next time when I'll be here helping you to hand make with love.